Chapter 8. The first story, Baby Plants. The author's experience. When our girls, Faye and Fern, were 6 and 4 years of age, they became interested in learning about their coming into the world. Their mama had told me of their puzzling questions. We agreed that I should tell them a story of life every 6 months or a year until they were 9 or 10. Then their mama should tell them the last story, the story of their life. A few days later, some young men, whom we were helping through college, and I were working among the flowers, when one of the girls made some inquiry about the relation of birds. This naturally opened the way for my first talk. I promised her and her sister a very interesting story at the rest hour at noon. As ever, they were both anxious to hear a new story. Dinner over, they followed me into the greenhouse. I gathered a number of flowers and invited them to be seated near me while I told them the story. Praise a child for asking. I opened the story by saying, "Mama tells me that you have become interested in knowing where you were before you were born and how you got into this world. We have talked together about your interest in this matter, and we are glad that you have asked these questions, and especially because you came first to us. For you to ask these questions so early in life indicates that you are very bright and intelligent. We are your natural teachers. We love you as no one else does or can. In the future, anything you wish to know about yourselves, come to us, and we will take pleasure in telling you all that is best for you to know." Why the child should be told gradually. You would like to be able to read and understand all there is in the fourth reader. There is nothing in the fourth reader that could do you a particle of harm. There are many things in the fourth reader that you could not understand. Papa and Mama might read and try to explain them to you. Still, there would be some things that we could not make plain to you, for the reason that you are not old enough for your little minds to grasp them. You understand that you must learn first what there is in the first reader. When you have learned all there is in it, then you are ready for the second reader. The mastery of the second reader prepares you for the third, and the third reader prepares you for the fourth. There are some things that you understand today that you could not understand 6 months ago. This great world is full of things that you cannot understand now, but as you grow older and your mind grows stronger, step by step, you will learn and understand things that you cannot understand now. There are so many things in this world that may be known, that no one lives long enough to learn them all. Just so, you would like to know how God brings little children into this world. This is God's wonderful plan. It cannot do you a bit of harm to know all about it, if you could understand it. But you're not old enough now. Papa can tell you a beautiful story about how God brings all the little sprigs of grass, weeds, vegetables, and trees into the world now. And in a few months I can tell you about the mussels, oysters, and fish. Then, when you're a year older, I will tell you about the birds. Later, I will tell you about the higher animals. When you're 8 or 10, Mama will tell you the last story, God's beautiful plan of bringing little children into the home. Some things right one time and wrong at another. You are both old enough to know that there are some things we do that is right for us to do under certain conditions, but would be very wrong for us to do under other conditions. Some things would be right to do during the week, but wrong if done on Sunday. Every few days you take an all-over bath. It is perfectly right for you to take these baths and for your mama to help you. All people who desire to live cleanly lives and enjoy good health take frequent all-over baths. But you have noticed that when you take baths, other people are not invited to be present. Not even Papa is present. This is because our bodies are sacred. We wear clothing that our bodies may not be exposed to the gaze of other people. We do not speak the name of God and Jesus in a light and frivolous way, because these names are sacred. Why we do not talk about the origin of life. One of the most delicate, pure, and sacred experiences connected with human life is God's beautiful plan of bringing little children into the home. It is so sacred, pure, and delicate that good people seldom speak of it, and never in a light and foolish way. It is for this reason that you have never heard your mama and papa speak of it. It is right for fathers and mothers, husbands and wives to speak to each other about this matter. Also for grown people, when there is some good reason for doing so. It is not wise or best for little children to talk about how children come into the world except to their parents. We are your natural teachers, and we want you always to feel free to come to us with questions about things of this nature. When you're older, you will understand better why Papa gives you this advice. Many men and women, boys and girls, have not been carefully trained to be good. They get angry and quarrel or fight, use bad language, break the Sabbath, and do many other wrong things. Some appear to take pleasure in doing wrong and in leading others to do wrong. This class of people do not look upon God's plan of bringing little children into the world as being pure and sacred. They use very bad language when they try to talk about the story of life or tell it to others. When little children hear these people talk about the story of life, their little minds and hearts are filled with bad words and very wicked thoughts. In this way, many little boys and girls are started wrong in life, and they are sure to have a hard and painful struggle to rid themselves of impure thoughts, words, and habits in afterlife. It may not be very long until some schoolmate or someone older than you will say, "I know something that you don't. You would like to know it, and I will tell you, if you will not tell your papa and mama about it." Now, girls, whenever someone wants to tell you something and asks you not to tell your mama and papa, you may be sure that it is wrong, that it will injure you, and most likely it is false. Mama and papa would advise you to say to them, "We don't want to hear anything that we cannot talk about to mama and papa." Story of the plants. The story of life that papa will tell you today will be about the plants, vegetables, and trees, how their young come into the world. Papa has gathered some beautiful flowers with which to illustrate the story. This will be our first lesson in botany. Every part of a plant has special names. Many of the names are too difficult for you to remember. When you get older, you will learn and remember the names. The story of life in all flowering plants begins in the flower. The outer parts. At sight, we notice that the many parts of a flower are arranged in whorls or circles. The outer whorl is called the calyx. You will notice that in some of these flowers, the calyx is highly colored. In others, it looks like little green leaves, and in some of the flowers, the calyx is absent. You will observe that in some flowers, the calyx is composed of 4 or more parts. These separate parts are called sepals. In other flowers, the sepals have grown together, so they appear to be only one sepal. In such flowers, we count the sepals by the small notches on top. The second whorl is called the corolla. This whorl is usually the most highly colored part of the flower. If either of these whorls is absent in a flower, it is the calyx. Sometimes both whorls are absent. The separate parts of the corolla are called petals. Sometimes the petals are separate from the base of the flower. In other flowers, they are more or less united. The papa parts. While the calyx and corolla form the most attractive and beautiful parts, they're not the most important parts of a flower. The prettiest things are not always the best or most useful things. Let us now carefully examine these central organs. They're called the essential organs. Were it not for these organs in the flowers, no new grasses, plants, vegetables, and trees would come into this world. Such a misfortune would rob this world of most of its beauty and much of its value. In this flower, the next whorl consists of a number of small, slender organs. These are called stamens. They're the father parts of the flower and possess the father nature. On top of these organs are little delicate bodies, poised lightly and filled with a very fine dust. These little bodies are called anthers. The fine grains of powder are called pollen. You can rub the pollen off with your finger. This dust varies slightly in color in different flowers. The mama parts. The central organ in this flower is called the pistil. The pistil is composed of 3 parts. At the base of the pistil is the pod, more correctly called the ovary. In the ovary, little seed are formed. On top of the ovary is a slender organ called the style. On top of the style is a spongy enlargement called the stigma. The stigma, style, and ovary form the mother part of the flower and possess the mother nature. In some plants, each flower has more than one pistil. How the papa and mama natures unite. When the pollen is ripe, the anther cells burst open and the little light, powdery pollen falls out, and it is carried by gravity, the wind, or by insects to the stigma. The little pores of the stigma open and admit the grains of pollen, and the style carries the pollen to the ovary, where it unites with the little seed. The seed are then said to be fertilized. This means that the father and mother natures have united in the seed. The seed grow and develop in the ovary. While this is being done, food for the little baby plants to live on while only a day or 2 old is being stored up in the seed. In such seed, is the tiny beginning of a future plant. The seed ripened in the pod. The pod bursts open and the seed fall upon the ground, or men gather them and later plant them in the soil. The spring sunshine and rain cause the seed to sprout, and as tiny stems appear above the ground, only an inch or so high, they're nothing in the world but little baby sprigs of grass, little baby weeds, little baby vegetables, or little baby trees. When God created the first grasses, plants, and trees, He commanded them to be fruitful and multiply. In this story, you have learned how all the grown-up plants and trees obey this command of God. The two natures do not always exist in the same flower. In the flowers we have studied, we found both the male and female organs in the same flower. Each flower possessed the two natures, male and female. But this is not true of all plants and trees. In some plants and trees, flowers can be found having only stamens. These would be father flowers. They could not produce seed or fruit. On some plants and trees may be found flowers having only pistils. These are mother flowers. Flowers of these two kinds may be found growing on the same limb of a plant or tree, or on different limbs, or on different trees. The poplar and willow trees are examples of the last kind. In the case of the Indian corn, the ear of corn, including the cob, the grains, shuck, and silk form the mother part of the cornstalk. The tassel of the cornstalk is the father part and contains the father nature. The tassel produces a great deal of pollen. You have, on passing through a patch of corn, notice the pollen falling everywhere and covering everything. Ears of corn sometimes have as many as 1,000 grains of corn to the cob. Each grain sends out one or more little silks beyond the shuck to catch some of the pollen. Should these little silks fail to catch the grains of pollen, no grains of corn would form on the cob. The father and mother natures must unite if little seed are formed. From this we learn why it is that every little sprig of grass, weed, vegetable, and tree must have a father and mother, and their natures must unite. The three methods. We mentioned three ways by which the pollen from the male organs is carried to the stigma of the female organ: wind, gravity, and insects. In the corn, the ears are below the tassel, and gravity is all that is necessary to carry the pollen to the silks. Where one tree bears bloom having only stamens and another tree of the same species bears flowers having only pistils, nature may use both the wind and insects in carrying the pollen from a male to the female tree. In some plants and trees, the blooms are so constructed that gravity and the wind are of but little service. In such flowers, a sweet juice is formed at the base of the flower. This attracts the bees and insects. As they press down into the flower to sip the sweet juice, they rub off some of the pollen onto their wings, legs, and back. The next flower they enter, some of this pollen is rubbed off on the stigma of that flower. In this way, the seed are fertilized. From this, we see that the real purpose of the sweet juice in the flower is not produced for food for the insects, but for the purpose of attracting the insects so they may carry the pollen from one flower to another. A most wise, sacred, and beautiful plan. In this little story, you have learned in a general way God's plan of bringing all little grasses, plants, vegetables, and trees into being that come from seed. You have learned two great laws, namely, every plant that comes from a seed must have a father and mother, and the father and mother natures must unite in the seed. These two great laws are just as true in the animals and in the human family as among the plants. When we most admire a beautiful bed of flowers or a blooming tree, when we gather a bouquet of flowers to wear or offer to a friend, at that very moment the two natures are uniting for the purpose of increasing their kind. God is the author of the male and female organs of the plants, and for this reason the union of their two natures is sacred and pure. Plants were the first living things that God made. Man was the last. The plants were at the bottom of God's work of creation. Man was at the top. If the same laws we have found in the plants that enable them to bring their little children into the world are the same laws that enable human fathers and mothers to bring their little children into the world, and since we found this plan to be sacred and pure among all the flowers, then this same plan, when used in the human family, must be pure and sacred. If man is so much higher in the scale of life than the flower, then these laws must be even more sacred in the human family. This will show you how very degrading it is to entertain low and vulgar thoughts about the coming of little children into this world, as some people do.